I'm Evelyn Harper, 65 years old enough to have learned that silence, when used properly, can slice cleaner than any blade. The band stopped a second too early. For one quiet beat, the only sound in the ballroom was laughter. My daughter-in-law's laughter, and then everyone else's joined in. The joke, of course, was me. Jessica Hall, newly crowned bride of my son Michael, lifted her crystal glass. Her dress caught every chandelier in the room and threw the light back like mockery. "Let's toast to family," she announced, "to those who build real life with their own hands, and to those who prefer to live off what's already made." She paused long enough for her gaze to land on me, the older woman sitting 2 seats down, whose quiet had always seemed like weakness. When Mrs. Harper asked for a third dessert, I told the chef to make it double for our family's little mascot. A sharp ripple of laughter circled the tables. Cheap laughter. The kind that lives and dies in one breath. Michael flinched. His shoulders stiffened, then fell again, as if he wasn't sure which side of the moment he belonged to. I removed my glasses, cleaned the lenses with the corner of a napkin, and set them back on. When your name doesn't glow in headlines, your decisions end up in the fine print, and I've always preferred fine print. It keeps your hands clean while everyone else spills champagne on theirs. "Jess, that's enough," Michael said softly. "It's just a joke," she laughed. "We're family now. Families tell the truth." Truth. Such a lovely word. When people think they own it. Her father, Robert Hall, rose next. He was the kind of man whose voice never fit the room he was in, always a note too loud, too certain. "Tonight, two families join not only hearts but dreams, business, investments, big plans. We stand for people who keep their word." Applause followed. Polite, shallow, rehearsed. The chandeliers flickered against the glasses, each reflection trembling. My invoice for those glasses sat in the accounts office, stamped paid in full. I felt the walls closing in on the perfume and noise, so I stepped outside into the garden. The air smelled of lilac and expensive exhaustion. The night wrapped me in the kind of quiet that never judges. "Mom?" Michael found me near the lilac bushes. His voice was small, younger than his years. "I'm sorry. I'll talk to her." "No?" I said, watching the light from the ballroom spill across the grass. "Let life do the talking." He didn't understand. Not yet. But life was already clearing its throat. Life had been speaking to me for years. You just had to know where to listen. 15 years earlier, after my husband died, I was left with a boy, a mortgage, and a kitchen table that had seen more bills than breakfasts. I counted the cracks on its surface like mile markers, each one a reminder that surviving was its own profession. I took whatever bookkeeping jobs came my way, small factories, diners, people who couldn't tell the difference between a receipt and a promise. Then the recession came, and Hall Manufacturing, Robert Hall's pride, began to crumble like old brick. Machines stopped, paychecks bounced, and good men started wearing the same shirt 3 days in a row. That's when I met Leo Grant, a lawyer with eyes like Sunday morning, calm, clear, but aware of storms. He walked into my cramped office with 2 sheets of paper and an offer that sounded less like business and more like oxygen. "On this page," he said, tapping the first, is a plan to shut the doors, fire everyone, and let the bank pick the bones. He tapped the second. And here's a bridge. Bridge? I asked. A bridge loan. Temporary funding. You back them for 6 months, take controlling rights if they default, they survive, you build something that matters. I stared at the numbers. Small risks, large faith. He was asking me to bet on strangers. And on myself. That night, I stayed up till 2, the glow of my laptop painting ghosts on the ceiling. I saw the workers' faces, the factory lights going dark, the noise of metal fading to silence. Then I imagined it all starting again, this time with someone quiet behind it, steering without applause. By dawn, I had a name typed across the contract: Silver Oak Holdings. Oaks grow slowly. They break storms, not promises. Leo smiled when he read it. You just built yourself a wall nobody will see, but everyone will lean on. He was right. Silver Oak kept the factory alive. We paid wages, we bought debt nobody else wanted. We never advertised, never took credit, never raised our voices. And when people asked who the mysterious investor was, Robert Hall shrugged and said, some out-of-state fund. He never thought to look down the street. Years passed. Leo and I stayed in touch. Coffee meetings that lasted longer than they should, emails that ended with take care, but meant be safe. He once told me, Eve, you're building an empire of kindness. No, I'm just putting the chairs back where they belong. He laughed softly. It sounded like relief. We built quietly, in small, deliberate moves. When home manufacturing stumbled again, Silver Oak was there, not to save them, but to save the people inside. And all the while, I let Robert Hall keep his headlines. He needed them more than I did. But that night when Jessica called me a fat pig under those chandeliers, I realized something. There comes a point when silence stops being noble and starts being permission. It was time for truth to speak, and I already knew its voice. The second round of champagne never came. The band stopped tuning. The crowd's laughter folded into an uneasy whisper as the doors opened and Leo Grant walked in. He wasn't supposed to be there. Not at a wedding, not in that sharp black suit, and certainly not holding a thin folder like it carried the truth itself. But Leo had always known timing better than anyone, especially when silence had overstayed its welcome. "Excuse me," he said, his tone low, steady, cutting clean through the room. "Apologies for the interruption, but we have a legal formality that can't wait." Robert Hall grinned the way men do when they think they're still in control. "Oh, wonderful, the lawyers. Go ahead, Mr. Grant, make it quick. We've got a dance floor waiting." Leo nodded politely. Just a few lines. Under the bridge loan and security agreement, failure to complete payment number 7 and breach of covenants result in the immediate transfer of controlling interest in Hall Manufacturing to Silver Oak Holdings, along with full rights to appoint a new board of directors. The words fell like glass shattering. The laughter died. Even the chandeliers seemed to stop breathing. "What?" Robert barked. "That's ridiculous. What delinquent payment?" "The one dated Monday, the one you postponed until after the wedding. Copies are in your inbox and safe." Robert's face flushed deep red. And who the hell is Silver Oak? Where are they? Let them come out and tell me this nonsense themselves. Leo turned toward me. His eyes were kind, but his expression meant now. I stood, adjusting my shawl, and stepped into the light. I didn't need a microphone. When truth has been reading 15 years, it doesn't whisper. It arrives. Right here, I said. Right next to your family. Next to my son. Next to every person in this town who deserves better than your speeches about integrity. Jessica blinked, stunned. What are you talking about? You can't. This is unfair. You're ruining my wedding. You ruined it yourself, I said quietly, with words you should never use about someone else's body. The silence in that room grew dense, like air before a thunderstorm. Leo lifted the folder slightly. He said, "One more matter. The Hands of Hope Foundation, which funded retraining for hall employees during the layoffs this season, will redirect a portion of tonight's event budget to scholarships for children of those furloughed this season." The crowd took a moment to process. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then a wave of applause rolled through the hall. Not loud, not mocking, but warm, human. The kind that wraps instead of cuts. Jessica's father stood frozen, gripping his glass. Jessica herself trembled, mascara pooling beneath her eyes. "This isn't over," she whispered. "It never is," I said. "That's what makes it interesting." I turned to Michael. His eyes were wide, not angry, not proud, just open. He finally saw me, not the quiet mother who ironed his shirts and stayed out of the pictures, but the woman who built the floor under his life. I smiled. "Don't worry, sweetheart. The music will come back on. It always does, just not for the same dancers." The thing about applause is that it fades fast. Real work begins after the hands fall silent. By morning, Robert Hall's lawyers had already filled my inbox with noise. Rescind, appeal, nullify, threaten. The legal equivalent of a tantrum. 2 days later, Jessica posted a teary monologue online, claiming her happiness had been stolen by jealousy. It racked up sympathy clicks from people who'd never met a contract in their lives. A week later, Silver Oak installed the new board. Contracts were audited. The family friends who'd been feeding off company funds like barnacles were peeled off one by one. "You could destroy them completely," Leo said one evening as we left the courthouse, the winter light already dying. "I could," I said, slipping on my gloves. "But I don't build careers on ruins. I clear the road so others can walk." He nodded, quiet, thinking. The wind tugged at his coat. And then, as if carried by that same wind, something tender broke loose between us, something I hadn't felt in decades, the permission to be soft. "Eve," he said slowly, "you've always chosen the city over everything, even yourself." I smiled faintly, and "You've always chosen the law. Maybe it's time we both chose a person." He looked away, a little smile caught in his eyes, the kind that says, "I've waited for you to say that." Jessica wasn't finished. She filed a motion to void the prenup, claiming Michael had hidden his family's financial position. She thought she'd cornered me. She didn't realize the paperwork had been signed a year before she met him, back when he opened his first sound studio, and I'd protected him from other people's debts. The court hearing lasted 11 minutes. "Miss Hall," the judge said gently, "you signed voluntarily, with representation. Motion denied." Jessica followed me into the corridor afterwards, her heels clicking like gunfire. "You win?" she hissed. "So what now? You take everything?" Everything is a word for people who haven't lived long. Next, we fix what's broken. I handed her a folder: transparency in procurement, independent auditing, programs for workers over 50, and invitations to rehire veterans once pushed out Oz too slow. Her lips trembled, the fight draining out of her. I've always been terrified of being invisible, so I made noise. Silence travels farther, if you know what you're silent for. She said nothing, just nodded once, the smallest bow of respect a person can make when they finally heard themselves. A month later, Robert Hall requested a meeting. He came alone. No lawyers, no showmanship, just a man who's seen the tide turn. "You've won," he said. "I wasn't playing," I replied. He offered a new deal, a partial buyback of shares under the new ethics code. Not because he believed in it, but because the banks did. For once, that was enough. We signed. Hall Manufacturing would finally become a company, not a family's feeding trough. That same afternoon, I signed another paper, just for me. "What's this?" Leo asked, glancing at it. "A small surrender," I said. "I'm tired of being strong alone." He read it, then smiled with his eyes. "You're asking me to dinner without a brief?" "I'm asking you to a life without one in every room of it." We ate that night at a small corner bistro. Nothing fancy, just warm light and thick mugs that kept the tea hot longer than conversation. He told me about his first case, the one he'd lost but learned from. I told him about Michael, how at 3 he forgot how to cry and at 30 learned again. We laughed where others would be offended, and we felt quiet where others would laugh. When we reached my porch, he stopped. "You've been a home for a whole town," he said softly. "Let someone be a home for you." I didn't say no. I didn't say yes. I just opened the door. It didn't lead into a house. It led into the future. At Hall Manufacturing, we started calling it the return line, a simple name for something radical. We rehired the older workers who'd been let go, retrained them, paid them fairly, and promised that no one would ever again be measured by a teenager's stopwatch. In the HR office, someone hung a small sign above the time clock. "Experience isn't ballast, it's fuel." Michael came to my office one afternoon and sat down like a boy who'd broken a vase and feared not punishment, but my disappointment. "Mom," he said, voice tight, "I didn't see any of it." "You do now. That's enough." He nodded. "Jess and we're divorcing. No drama, no press. She said she's not ready to love the way love requires. Honesty is an expensive door, but at least she opened it." That evening, I found an envelope on my windowsill. No return address, just round, careful handwriting. "Mrs. Harper, I won't ask for forgiveness. I'm learning it. You taught me that dignity doesn't shout, but you can hear it anyway. I'm moving out of town. If Hands of Hope ever needs a volunteer, I'll come. Jessica." I pressed the letter against my mug so the steam curled its edges. Paper remembers warmth. The ending wasn't fireworks. It was morning. When the city still slept, I woke early, not because of age, but because of light. I filled the kettle, set out 2 cups. Habit grows roots before you realize it. Leo walked into the kitchen in rolled up sleeves, eyes unhurried, steady. 2 spoons of honey?" he asked. "1," I said. Today I let myself just be a woman. We ate in quiet. Quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was full, of all the things we no longer needed to explain. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert Hall, brief and bare as an apology could be. "Thank you. I understand what rules mean now. Maybe too late, but I understand." I typed back, "Better late than never." People learn when teachers stop shouting. "Ready?" Leo asked, nodding toward the door. "For what?" "For a life where your name isn't hidden in the fine print." I took his arm. We stepped onto the porch.
Dawn drew thin gold lines across my skin, not cracks, but maps leading home. Someone will write that I was the secret owner who humbled a dynasty. Let them. I know the only truth that matters. I didn't seek revenge. I just opened a window where the air had gone stale. The best revenge wasn't loud. It was a life they couldn't reach, built from love, from fairness, and from tea that holds its heat. You really did build an empire of kindness, Leo said, his hand covering mine. And now, I answered, let's build a home. We stepped into the light. Behind us were chandeliers, empty glasses, loud toasts. Ahead waited a kitchen table, a shift to start, small decisions that mattered, and a love that arrived without fanfare and promised to last longer than the music.